We are tonight's entertainment.
You can't handle the truth.
The fire rises.
Pizza time.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So it begins.
You know how much I sacrifice?
You think that's air you're breathing?
Groovy.
I don't have friends. I got family.
We are Sex People! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Craft Services.
Hey, Trent.
Hi, Parth.
Good to see you.
You're looking well?
You're looking well as well. We have a film podcast.
We sure do. What have you been eating?
Well, Trent, it's a morning recording, so I think you know what I had. Can you give a guess? I didn't eat anything, but I did drink something.
Tea?
Yeah.
Is it wait. Is it of the chai?
Of the chai variety? Yes. I made myself some chai, and I've been doing something sort of particular these days, which is in the mornings. I used to never drink tea, only sometimes when my dad would make it. Then I sort of got into the habit of having tea in the morning. Then I got into the habit of having tea in the morning and in the afternoon as a little pick-me-up. And then...
that 2:30 feeling.
More like 4 or 5 p.m. feeling.
That's in the 5-hour energy advertisements. They used to say that 2:30 feeling.
See, at 2:30, I'm feeling all right. It's more the like 3:34 that I'm starting to feel the pain.
And you don't have trouble falling asleep at night? You don't think about all the bad things you've ever done?
Well, that's just constant. That's irrespective of tea.
Throughout the day, yeah.
Lately, what I've been doing, because I used to make the tea like in the morning and in the afternoon, and now I just make 2 cups in the morning, and then just leave 1 cup in the fridge and then reheat it. So there's a cuppa waiting for me. Come 4 p.m.
A cup of what the Zionists at Starbucks like to call a chai tea.
Oh, so Trent, what have you been eating?
Parth, I'm still standing strong in the protest of Starbucks. I'm the only one left who remembered that that's a thing. Parth, funny thing, I've also got a cup of tea here.
A cuppa? In a Rutgers University mug, no less.
Do people call it a cuppa?
In England, I believe they do.
I don't know if I've ever mentioned this. I studied abroad.
Whoa,
Let's hold for
did you really?
Let's hold for applause. In England, let's hold for applause. Okay, and the crowd goes wild.
Or should I put like cricket noises?
That's up to you. That's the benefit you get with editing this. It's
so
like
you'll know with the sound effect, like how strong Trent and I's friendship is right now.
You never listened to the end of year episode because I think if you did, you would have reached out to me about some of the edits I made. Because notably, the only one main funny thing is near the end of the draft, because we drafted movies, I like jokingly was like, Parth, I cooked you, bro. And then you're like, no, you didn't. And then you paused and you said, maybe you did cook me. And so I clipped that and I slowed it down a bunch of times. And so in decreasing speed, you go, maybe you did cook me. Maybe you did cook me. Because, I'm just like the protagonist of this podcast so rarely. I just needed to...
The protagonist?
Tenet. That I needed to amplify that moment for myself a little bit. But I'm drinking black tea.
It's African-American tea, but yeah.
Nice. It's a political intro, man.
I know.
We got our fingers on the pulse. Mm. Bum, 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 bum.
But the pulse of this podcast is sort of propagating forward, no?
I was going to expand more on the tea, but yeah, you're right. Is
there something worth mentioning about the tea? You could say something about the tea.
I had a fruit tea the other day, and I just thought you were supposed to put milk and sugar in all of your teas, and my mom came home, and she was like, Trent, I just wanted to talk to you about something. I saw your cup, and it's sort of a weird thing to do to put milk and sugar in a fruit tea. That's sort of a black tea thing. So I learned that.
Yeah.
And I'm learning drinking this cup, you low-key need 2 tea bags, because 1 tea bag is for the smallest cup in the world. Do you use 2 tea bags?
I don't use tea bags.
Oh, you use actual tea.
Yeah,
powder.
like I make actual like tea leaves and shit.
Parth, I have to ask, how does it feel to be better than me?
It's tough to say because I've been like
this way for so long.
Like I don't know any other way,
Yeah.
But can I say, Trent? It feels good.
And can I say something? Cue the intro.
Welcome back to Craft Services, where we talk about the movies. Each week we talk about a film and hopefully have a crew member of that film to talk with us about their experience working on the picture. And boy, do we have some news that came out for us yesterday, 2 days ago, about our guest today.
Yeah, our guest this week, Fiona Crombie. We interviewed her a few weeks ago, and we thought to ourselves, maybe we're going to get lucky and she's going to get nominated for a Oscar.
We even ended our call with her saying, we're pretty sure you're going to get nominated for the Oscar. And she went, oh, thanks. You know, like she
and
would.
And she brushed it off. And here we are introducing our guest for this week, Fiona Crombie, who is now Oscar nominated for her production design on Hamnet. So congratulations. It only makes this interview like 5 times cooler. I don't know. It was already pretty damn cool. And just while we're here shouting out our awesome guests and shouting out their Oscar noms, Autumn Gerald Arkapaw, the DP of Sinners, who was nice enough to come on the show and is now getting all sorts of flowers for Sinners. Parth, I believe you said 16 Oscar noms.
Yeah, it's the most of any feature film of all time.
Really?
It beat Titanic and La La Land, which both got 14 noms.
And I believe, not that anyone should be betting on Polymarket or whatever, but I believe Sinners is currently the favorite to win Best Picture. Congratulations to Oscar nominees, Autumn Gerald Arkapaw and Fiona Crombie, and thanks to all of our other guests this year. You're great, and you made great work. But should we just do it and cue it?
Yeah, I think we've blabbered on long enough, and we want to hear the thoughts and experiences of our Oscar-nominated guest, Fiona Crombie. Let's do it. And let me just say, Trent, cue it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our interview with production designer Fiona Crombie. She's the production designer behind such films as The Favorite, Beau is Afraid, Mickey 17, and our film for today, Chloe Zhao's Hamnet. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So just to start off, could you talk about when you decided to be a production designer?
Oh, gosh. I think I consciously decided I wanted to be a production designer when I was sort of like an adult. I was actually doing the wrong thing. I was trying to be a lawyer for a minute. But actually, you know, I did grow up with my father being a film director. And so I used to go to film sets, and not a lot, but I did walk around and I was always in awe of the sets and the costumes, but actually just loved. My dad made a lot of period things in Australia in the 80s and 90s. And so, you know, they were big scale. So they had lots of streetscapes that were built. And I remember thinking, I don't know, there was something incredibly magical about it. But then like every good, you know, film industry parent, they tried to get me not to go into the industry. And so I went into theatre actually and was a theatre designer, and then eventually just went, you know what, you really want to make movies. And so that's what happened.
Can you talk about transitioning out of trying to become a lawyer and getting a start as a production designer?
Well, the whole law thing was a couple of years at uni. I mean, I used to walk into the law library and basically look at the amount of books and then walk out again. And that was how successful I was. I used to walk into the lectures and think, I don't recognize myself here, you know? And so when I went to drama school, I went to a place called NIDA, which is like, you know, the big theatre school in Australia. I remember walking in there and looking around and thinking, these are my people. I found my people, you know, so that was a relief. And then the actual process of transitioning from theatre, because I had quite a successful theatre career in Australia, the process was not straightforward. You know, the people didn't really want to give me a go, except for one guy, Justin Cozell, who is an old friend of mine, and he was also like making his way up as a director. And so, I mean, it was really imperfect. I applied for a bunch of different jobs and, you know, I was happy to do like costumes or production design, actually. Like I just wanted to have a go, and it took a beat. It really did. But it was Justin who gave me my, you know, music videos and commercials and short films, and then Snowtown, my first feature film.
And I guess just jumping forward to topic of the day, can you talk about meeting Chloe Zhao for the first time and what your first knowledge of Hamnet was as a film?
Well, I'd heard that it was being made and I'd read the book years before. and I wasn't available. Like I was on another project. And so I was just just kind of went, oh, well, lucky for some, I'm sure it'll be beautiful. And then sort of parked it. And then by the time I was available, I was lucky enough that it came around again. And I was on a commercial in Brazil at the time. And I remember being sent the script and I completely devoured it. Like it just read it so quickly. Had a very, very strong and clear response to the film and found it quite easy to articulate it. I had a bunch of images to show Chloe and we zoomed and it all happened very, very quickly. I think we had one Zoom and then it was an offer I was asked if I wanted to be involved in the next couple of days. And then almost immediately when I went back to the UK, I was driving to Stratford upon Avon and looking at the real places to have a sense of the world. And then I met Chloe, I don't know, maybe like a month later, she came to the UK and we started a preliminary scout. And so we met in a car park and I just knew immediately from meeting her that we were going to have an amazing time. I just knew, like, she's just she just arrived like ready, just this sort of openness to like, let's go find this thing together. And it was great. Yeah.
And can you talk about what your pre-production looks like and what it looked like for this film?
I build like a really solid visual library, like that I call it, almost like the spine for me. It's like the spine of the movie. It's like the initial images and impulses that come just from the read. I think and I respond to words in images and colors. And so I try to tease that out and articulate it with references. So I do that process. And then while I'm doing that process, often will be, depending on the project, with something like Hamnet, we were going to spend a lot of time in location. That was definitely the intention. And so we started very early doing a quite exhaustive amount of scouting. So driving all around in different parts of the UK. And Chloe had this idea that she really wanted the film to be made on location, almost in its entirety. We knew that we would be building the globe, of course, but the plan was that the houses and the streets and everything would be location. And so we looked at tons of places. And then it was, after weeks of this that we discovered that we actually needed to build a huge amount of the film. But that process was great because you're sort of in the back of a van, you're getting to know each other, getting to know Lukáš Zal. Yeah, we're sort of talking about what we like, what we don't like, what we're seeing, what we're, how we imagine certain scenes. And yeah, responding to the environments and kind of almost like creating. And so a big part of this film was about that. It was about driving around looking. And also we were geographically really separate from our studios. So our studio was sort of in North London. And then we would be driving out to Wales. So we spent a lot of time driving and a lot, to Herefordshire. And so, yeah, there was a lot of journeying around and like looking. And I think the thing that's very interesting about this project for me was that what was on that page in the first draft that I read is not actually what necessarily is on screen. The intention and the emotion and the essential qualities are absolutely there. But through the process, Chloe, and through working with the actors and working with all of us, actually, the script was just shaped and molded in a response to what we were finding, what we were feeling, what we were saying to each other, what was happening in those rehearsal rooms. And so, yeah, it was very, it's so kind of cheesy to say organic, but it actually was because it was a process of discovery from beginning to end.
Can you talk about where you decided how strict you were about adhering to reality or to history versus when you wanted to stray from that, and like how you made that decision going in?
Yeah, we always, and I say we because I work closely with my set decorator in particular, Alice Felton. And we always have a rule of understanding what it was. And, certainly the art directors, were the same. And so we understand what I'm doing with my production design is I'm creating emotional spaces, so it's always about, okay, well, what is the impact of this environment, whether it's a forest or a house or, anything, a garden? What's the emotional impact? What do I want that environment to say to the characters or about the characters, or just talk to the audience and the characters aren't aware, or whatever it is, And so there's always this thing where you have to leave emotional response to it. And I mean that for myself. Like, my emotional response to the work would be shortened if I was like, oh, but you can't do that. And it wouldn't have been like that. Instead, I'm looking for the pieces or shapes or whatever that just resonate for the film. And I did this is how I felt about my first period film that I did. We went into it saying it's got to be completely accurate. And then, of course, we didn't have the money to make it completely accurate, like nowhere near the money. Because to be accurate, you have to build every single thing. You have to manufacture. Things don't exist. And there's certainly not things you can hire from a hire house or, get from a market. So we had to work out a way to tell, this is Macbeth, 11th century Scotland, and we had to work out a way to tell the story of Macbeth, knowing that we were using found objects or, pieces that came from markets, in India and, all over the place. And we created our own visual language that felt right for the film and felt authentic and appropriate. So it wasn't accurate. And that basically that method that I sort of honed with Macbeth has carried me through The Favourite and The King and, now into Hamnet. Probably the most accurate film I've ever made from a period point of view was Cruella. that was actually because it was the 70s. It was like, oh, everything's cool and we can get it.
For Hamnet, for example, say like a chair or piece of furniture, can you walk us through like you before the shoot being like, okay, I need to find the perfect chair, to someone sourcing that or building that, to it finding its way like in the scene?
Yeah, it depends on what the piece is. But in the case of like a chair, I remember we talked about having air through the chairs, so that there was the chairs that you see in the dining room, for example, in the Henley Street house. I didn't want them to be, I'm really conscious of them being blobs in spaces. So I wanted to have shape and form and have air through them. And it's slightly something that's not really a kind of on the more fragile version of an Elizabethan chair. But you sort of respond to that what I do, my process is, obviously we have loads of references and pictures, and then we will go looking. And one of my favorite parts of my process is when I go out with my set decorator and maybe a couple of other people, and we'll just walk around and you'll find yourself drawn to certain things, and it can be colors or it could be textures, and you just kind of keep going back to certain things and like looking at, I don't know, just it could be the way something's woven, and you just think, oh, this is kind of feeling like it's in the right world. And then we basically photograph everything, we bring them in, we'll try them out, we'll put chairs around tables, and we'll with Hamnet, because we were so rushed with building our sets. I remember we had unfinished sets. They were like, not even painted, but we kept bringing the furniture in. So we would try all the furniture and lay it out and feel how it felt in the space, and then take it out again while they kept building the set. And we often, Alice and I, talk about developing, it sort of helps us to develop rules so that that you're looking for certain things. Like, one of the best things that we did on Hamnet was we had a thing where we said to the set deck department, if you see something and it's been broken and repaired, show us, bring it in, because that is interesting for this film, particularly for that Henley Street house. If it's already got a scar, that's interesting for us. So bring in. So when you tell people things like that, that just immediately helps them kind of focus their attention. And it's the same with saying, the chairs need to have air. We need to have something that's a bit, so then they're looking for every piece of fabric. We didn't want any new fabric. So all the fabrics are vintage. And so if it's too short, that's fine, because we'll repair it ourselves, So it was just kind of finding, Alice remembers all the rules. I always forget the rules, but we do create rules that help focus the team. And then they just bring things, and they bring the magic, really. Like, that's where you just get the surprises. Yeah.
Can you tell us where exactly were you filming all of the movie? You said it was in England.
Yeah, so the studio was a place called Elstree Studios, which is, had amazing movies made there, like The Shining was there. And we were on the back lot, so we took over the whole back lot. And then in terms of locations, our forest was at a place called Lydney, which is, I think it's just inside Wales. And then we were mostly in an area called Herefordshire. And really, you know, I come from Australia. I follow the sat nav and I just do what I'm told. So like, you can't say to me, where is that? Because I used to just hope for the best with the GPS and like on these tiny little country roads. And it's very wild out there. And we shot at the time of year where, you know, everything's unruly and overgrown and amazingly alive. And so, yeah, it's a great part of England, and it had not been filmed. The town that we shot in, Webley, hadn't been seen. The farmhouse hadn't been used. So, you know, and those things are kind of gems in England because often you see a lot of the same locations being used. So these like uncovering new places was a real bonus.
How long were you involved in the production all in all? And I read that it was shot in sequence. Is that true or no?
Yeah, it pretty much was. Yes, because we started on location. So it meant that the first things we shot the first day was Jesse in the forest. And then we were in the forest. So it's then Jesse and Paul in the forest. And, you know, then there was a little jumping out, you know, there's the family in the forest. But we were on location for the very beginning. So we did, basically their love story in the farmhouse and everything. And then after that, we moved, we did the location work. We moved and did, I don't even know how many weeks. It was weeks and weeks at the studio, and then had a little break where we came out of the studio and did the London pieces, and then went back in to continue the Globe. I think we went into the Globe at that point. But I was on I think I got the job maybe March and I finished in September, I think, something like that. September, October, maybe. Yeah. And
like 2 months of shooting?
I forget everything. I think it was longer than that. I do forget everything. But I'm sure it was longer. It would have been 12 plus. Yeah. Mm.
Can you talk about how your experience as a theater set designer affected this movie sort of particularly, especially, I mean, the Shakespeare of it all?
Yeah. I mean, what is kind of funny is that I did design Hamlet for a company in Australia at the Opera House. And it was, I mean, I thought it was beautiful. But I tell you what, I really honestly, and it's embarrassing to admit, I don't think I really understood it. I just kind of was like, I don't know, I think I was caught up in like how it looked or something, you know, like thinking of it sort of a more technical way. So this was a whole other thing. But also, you know, for me with this one, it's like you're not just thinking about the stage, you're also thinking about theatre and like creating our own version of the Globe. And really the design in many ways, what's happening on that stage is very linked to what's happening behind the stage. Not to mention it's linked to the themes of the film, and it's linked to the forest that we meet her and all of those kind of, and their love story and all of the story of their family and all of that. It's actually, you know, technically I remember talking about Paul and really feeling that Will should have a physical separation between where he is on the side of stage and Agnes is in the audience. And so that really informed the shape of the staging and how we did our backcloths and we put the side panels and did all the rope work. That all came through the process with actors. So I don't know. I mean, I guess my theatre training actually is like about how you can be articulate cinematically, like really distill images and really make something very clear and kind of potent because you're in a black box or you're in a space that doesn't change. And so I suppose that is probably, and then I remembered how to make like little prop tables out the back and, you know, have people coming on and off with props. But yeah, I think that's probably the main thing.
What an interview.
That was fun, Parth. If you liked that, what you're going to like even more is the remainder of the conversation, which comes out next Sunday at 5 a.m.
Yes. And except for when we take sort of extended breaks like we took this past December.
We were on a sabbatical.
We're pretty regular about putting our episodes out. Like you can always count on us. But it's been pretty taxing. It's been pretty taxing on you and me because we're the only ones really doing this. Trent, wouldn't it be better if we had someone helping us along the way.
Parth, there is another Skywalker, you know?
Trent, no.
There is another Skywalker. There is another.
That's like not bad, Trent.
There is another member of the craft services team.
Only of Dying Yoda.
Yeah.
So there is another member of the craft services team, and after 5 years, Parth and I had a baby.
It's true. They said it was physically and scientifically impossible.
We made out hard enough that I got Parth pregnant.
Okay, I'm the one. Okay.
Parth, yeah, come on.
Don't know what you mean by that, but yeah, we have brought on a producer, a sort of old college friend of ours that I've continued to work with on a few projects. The movie that I produced or associate produced, Drink and Be Merry, he was a great help on that, as well as other movies that I've worked on. We've brought on Bash Loyo Velazquez.
He's also the producer of our friend and former Rutgers classmate, Go Scarlet Knights podcasts, Shelf Warmers.
Yes, great podcast
friends,
you should check out as well.
Friends Andrew Alexander and Sam Fankel. Yeah, Shelf Warmers podcast. Go check
Friends
that
off
out.
the pod, but we're hoping to make something happen, make a little crossover.
If you're hearing this, I've listened to every episode. If I'm not your number one fan, If I'm not your number one fan, I don't know who the fuck is. Yeah, let us come on, and if you let us come on, maybe you can come on our podcast.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, Trent, you don't hold that power. Now Bash does. He's the producer.
Yeah, Bash is going to be helping us out with social media and editing and uploading, just to try to grow the
overall platform.
Grow the show a little bit in the year 2026. Because
2026,
it's about to be a movie, and this is a movie podcast, so it's about to be a movie podcast of a year.
It's going to be 6 years that we've been doing this podcast this year, but I think this is the year that we finally make it a film podcast.
I think this is I think we just need a little help.
Trent, is Bestie about to do a thing? I think with Bash, Bestie may just do a thing.
May do a couple things. Bestie may do a thing each week, Sunday at 5 a.m. And then Bestie might post about it on Instagram or Twitter at Craft Services Podcast, I think.
It's sort of different on Instagram and on Twitter, but it's basically that. But
figure it out.
Nowadays, it's not even going to be me or Trent doing it. It's going to be our boy Bash.
It's like when Timothy Chalamet posts on Instagram, he's got people doing that. That's like Parth and I now. It's like, we've got people doing that for us. We can't be like...
Whenever we run into people that find out that we have a film podcast, you every now and then when you're talking to a film person, they're like, so I love this movie. Can I come on the pod to talk about it? And we used to be like, oh, maybe, I don't know. But now it can be like, we may have to talk with our producer about it, Yeah,
no. Send our producer an email. He'll pass along your info.
For sure, bro. For sure.
And so Bestie can go review us 5 stars or 4 stars, fine. Leave a review, tell a friend.
Really does help.
Only if you're one of our besties, though.
Yeah, or just a good friend, or just someone, Really, if you're anyone.
Is that most of our spiel? Oh, next week, Fiona Crombie, Oscar nominated production designer, part 2. Welcome, Bash, to our little family.
I think that's it. I think we've covered it.
Shout out, Mom. You love Hamnet. If you're listening to this, what's up?
Truly, about 30% of the decision to cover something from Hamnet was because Trent said, my mom would really like that. And I was like, this sort of coalesces with what would probably be good for the pod, so I should probably make that happen.
Yeah, she really liked Hamnet. She said she cried for 2 hours at Train Dreams, and I envision her crying about the same at Hamnet, because my theater was filled of people ugly, shamelessly crying, which it was an emotional, cool experience, but just sort of something I haven't experienced in a while.
Yeah. It's a sad movie, but
did you see it in a theater?
Yeah, I did. Sophia and I had the distinct pleasure of sitting next to Sophia for the whole second half of that movie as she went
sniffling. She was just holding it back. She wasn't letting herself
no, she was crying, but she just she wasn't making sounds and being obnoxious about it.
Moral of the story, Parth finds crying obnoxious. So if you've got emotions...
Just like, don't make a spectacle of yourself. You know, like, you can cry, but there's a way to cry quietly in a corner while a movie plays, you know? Like, you're not what I'm supposed to be watching. But what you should be listening to is this podcast, which is coming out next week just for you guys. Bye, guys.
Okay, bye.